Hello, everyone. It's good to have you see me again, to see you again. Anyways, welcome to lesson 4. I am Fortune's Fool. In today's lesson, we will see love and marriage, but we will also see violence and death. We will see, on the one hand, comedy where things go right, and tragedy where things go wrong in a single lesson. And we will find out why dramatically Romeo cries to the heavens, I am Fortune's fool. Dun, dun, dun. Anyways, let's get some review of what we've been seeing in the story so far. Okay, as a review, we have the prince with his decree, no more fighting or you will die, right? I am so sick and tired of this, you Capulets, you Montagues. But we also have Lord Capulet, and he has met with Paris, and Paris wants to marry Juliet. But Capulet's like, well, Juliet's a little young. How about you come to the party that I'm organizing, and you can actually see Juliet, and maybe she'll like you and love you, and then you can marry her. But Romeo, who at this point is in love with Rosaline, he hears about this party of the Capulets, and he's like, hey, I might stop by and see if I can see her. And Lady Capulet is like, hey, Juliet, there's this guy named Paris who wants to meet you. How about you just check him out at this party and see maybe you'll fall in love with him? And then they have this party. And then at that party, Juliet and Romeo, instead of falling for Paris, falling for Rosaline, they fall for each other. So they see each other across the crowd. They don't even know who each other are at this point, but love at first sight. Uh-oh, but Tybalt, he's like, hey, what, a Montague at a Capulet party? Oh, Romeo, I'm so pissed at him. But Romeo and Juliet are a little too busy to worry about Tybalt at this point. They're falling for each other. After the party, Mercutio, remember, he is related to the prince, so he's neutral. So even though he is on the side of the Montagues because he's Romeo's close friend, he is a relative of the prince. Then we have Benvolio, who is a Montague. So they're friends of Romeo, they're friends with each other, and they're looking for Romeo after the party. So they're like, hey, where did he go? And they're trying to call out to him. They at this point, they don't know, right? They don't know that Romeo has fallen for Juliet. So they still think he is sad about Rosaline. And so they're kind of drunk. They're calling out for Romeo, but he doesn't show up. Instead, Romeo is too busy creeping around in Juliet's gardens and listening in on what Juliet's to say. So Juliet goes to her window and professes her love for Romeo, not knowing that he is actually present in the garden. So it creates this really strange circumstance. So normally with a relationship, I mean, you maybe go on a date. In this case, maybe like Paris, you go to the party and you would meet Juliet and you would talk and you might do some flirting, and then maybe you talk to the parents, and so like there's multiple stages in the relationship. Even at that time there were multiple stages in this wooing, but instead of that, Romeo just hears Juliet straight out say I love you. And then when Juliet realizes that Romeo's there, she's like, oh shoot, you heard that, didn't you? Awkward. Well, in that case, I guess that really cuts through a lot of stuff. I guess we don't have to go through all those stages in a relationship. And after really professing their love for each other, they decide to be married. So it might seem a little rushed, and certainly meeting someone that night and then getting engaged. That seems even quicker than people in that reality TV show Love is Blind on Netflix. One night, that's impressive. So they're engaged to be married because they both found out through a strange circumstances, Romeo hearing Juliet professing her love, that they love each other. So they're going to become married. And they decide, okay, so now Romeo, you go off and you try to arrange our marriage, and Juliet will try to hear back from you at 9 a.m. She'll use the nurse, that other character, to try to find out, okay, when are we going to get married, when are we going to meet up. So yeah, they're planning, not only did they get engaged quickly, but they're planning on being married really very soon, within the week. Okay, so I just summarized for you what happens in Act 1, right? And then what happens in the beginning of Act 2, where they plan to be married. So now I just want to summarize some key events in Act 2 before we get to the beginning of Act 3. Because Act 2, I just want to go through very quickly with you all. So what happens after Romeo meets with Juliet and they want to get married? Romeo goes to this guy right here, Friar Lawrence. He's part of the church, and so he's the one who could officiate their wedding. He could be the one who marries them. So Romeo comes to Friar Lawrence, and Friar Lawrence is like, wait, Juliet? Who on earth is Juliet? Weren't you in love with Rosaline? But the friar agrees to do it for very specific reasons. Let's listen here.
Thou art uproused with some distemperature, or if not so, then here I hit it right. Our Romeo hath not been in bed tonight.
That last was true, the sweeter rest was mine.
God pardon sin, wert thou with Rosaline?
With Rosaline, my ghostly father? No! I forgot that name, and that name's Woe.
That's my good...
Yep, he acts so surprised, as if everyone knows about Juliet. But does anyone else really know about Juliet at this point? No, right? Even Mercutio and Benvolio, his close friends, don't even know about Juliet.
Son, but where hast thou been then?
Tell thee, ere thou ask it me again. I have been feasting with mine enemy, where on a sudden one hath wounded me that's by me wounded. Both our remedies within thy help and holy physic lies.
Be plain, good son, and homely in thy drift. Riddling confession finds but riddling shrift.
Yep, so if you were confused on what Romeo just said there, the friar is like, can you just say what you're meaning here? Can you be straightforward for me, please?
Then plainly know, my heart's dear love is set on the fair daughter of rich Capulet. As mine on hers, so hers is set on mine, and all combined, save what thou must combine, by holy marriage. When and where and how we met, we wooed and made exchange of vow. I'll tell thee as we pass. But this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today.
Maybe that's your face during this entire play.
Holy St. Francis, what a change is here!
Holy St. Francis, what a change is here!
Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline! Lo, here upon thy cheek the stain doth sit of an old tear that is not washed off yet. And art thou changed? Pronounce this sentence then. Women may fall when there's no strength in men.
Thou chidst me oft for loving Rosaline.
For doting, not for loving, pupil mine.
And badst me bury love.
Not in a grave to lay one in, another out to have.
I pray thee, chide me not. Her I love now doth grace for grace and love for love allow. The other did not so.
Oh, she knew well I loved it read by rote that could not spell. But come, young waverer, come, go with me.
Okay, so here we see why Friar Lawrence agrees to help Romeo and marry them.
In one respect I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love.
To turn your household's rancor to pure love. The households, the Capulets and Montagues, their rancor, the conflict between them. So he hopes, by the marriage between Romeo and Juliet, to cause peace between these two families that have this ancient grudge.
Oh, let us hence! I stand on sudden haste.
Wisely and slow, they stumble that ran fast.
Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. So now we see Mercutio and Benvolio, Romeo's friends, and they are unaware again of Romeo and Juliet getting married, planning on that. But what they do hear is they hear that Tybalt, who is very angry that Romeo crashed the Capulet party, that Tybalt has sent a challenge to Romeo, a challenge to fight, to duel with swords. So Tybalt, angry at Romeo, sends this challenge. And so now we hear Mercutio talking about Tybalt as a fencer. He talks about his skill with a sword.
And is he a man to encounter
Tybalt. Why? What is Tybalt?
He's more than Prince of Cats, I can tell you. He's the courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing prick song. Keeps time, distance, and proportion.
So he's referring to fencing here. So if you hear these references to distance, proportion, time, it's the skill that Tybalt has with a blade.
He rests me his minim rests. 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. The very butcher of a silk button. A duelist. A duelist. A gentleman of the very first house, of the first and second cause. Oh, the immortal Passado, the Punto Reverso, the... Hey! The what?
So those are different fencing moves. So Mercutio and Benvolio are discussing the fact that, Tybalt, good with the sword, challenged Romeo. Trouble ahead. And now we hear from Juliet. So Romeo has scheduled Friar Lawrence in the wedding, and so Juliet sent her nurse to go talk to Romeo. And Romeo conveyed the news that they will be married with Friar Lawrence officiating the wedding. So the nurse now has come back to Juliet with this news, the wedding.
What says my love, my lord, my Romeo?
Have you got leave to go to Shrift today?
I have.
Shrift is confession. So if you're a Catholic, you might be familiar with this, but going to a priest to receive confession for one's sins. So the nurse is like, hey, do you have time to pretend you're going to confession when really you'll be going to...
Then hie you hence to Friar Lawrence's cell. There stays a husband to make you a wife. Now comes the wanton blood up in your cheeks. Hie you to church, I must another way to fetch a ladder, by the which your love must climb a bird's nest soon when it is dark.
So she's going to go and get married. Well, the nurse will get a ladder for Romeo to climb into Juliet's room later that night. ...
I am the drudge and toil in your delight, but you shall bear the burthen soon at night. Go, I'll to dinner, hie you to the cell.
High fortune, honest nurse, farewell.
Oh, exciting stuff. Happy times. They're going to get married. Nothing could go wrong, right? So now Juliet has come to meet Romeo, and they will be married. You can see Friar Lawrence is there as well. Our play does not show them getting married, because at the time it was actually against the law to depict marriages on a stage, because it's like a holy thing. But this is their meeting right before they get married.
Romeo.
My Juliet, welcome. As do waking eyes, closed in night's mists, attend the frolic day, so Romeo hath expected Juliet, and thou art come.
I am, if I be day, come to my sun. Shine forth and make me fair.
So remember the imagery of them being suns to each other, being light. Think about that imagery of light and darkness as we go throughout this play.
Come, wantons, come, the stealing hours do pass.
Oh, Juliet! If the measure of thy joy be heaped like mine, and that thy skill be more to blazon it, then sweeten with thy breath this neighbour air.
They are but beggars that can count their worth. But my true love is grown to such excess, I cannot sum up some of half my wealth.
Defer embracements till some fitter time.
Lead, Holy Father, all delay seems long.
Make haste, this lingering does us wrong.
Come with me, and we will make short work, for by your leaves you shall not stay alone till Holy Church incorporate two in one.
Alrighty, so now they're going off to be married. Okay, so that concludes Romeo and Juliet. They got married, happily ever after, the end. Just kidding. Let's see this line here. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Remember this word in our prologue. Remember the prologue to the entire play? We hear from the chorus. They are star-crossed lovers. So remember that. Remember that there are problems, there are obstacles ahead of them. The stars are set against them. Fate is set against them. Fortune is set against them. Think about Oedipus and how fate, the gods, were set against him. So think about that. Even though it seems like we're moving towards a happy conclusion, there is trouble ahead. Now, before we watch this trouble unfold, before we see the tragedy begin, I want you to reflect: what problems, obstacles, or conflicts do you see that may resurface in our play? So it seems like they're happy, they're gonna get married. Even if you know what happens, what signs do you see of this trouble brewing? What foreshadowing have you seen so far? What conflicts? What issues? I want you to reflect on this in your journal, so your commonplace book. Remember, you send me these video notes each week. Reflect in that commonplace book for about 4 minutes. Go! If you're struggling to know what to write, think of what characters might be a problem moving forward. Think about what tensions between the families. Think about, okay, what happens now that Romeo and Juliet are married? No one else knows, right? So what's going to go down? One more minute. Remember, you should have more than just 1 or 2 sentences. There should probably be between 50 and 70 words. time just went up. You can always pause this video if you need more time or need to wrap up that sentence. So there are many things you might have written about. You might have just written generally about the conflict between the families. So what are Romeo and Juliet going to say to their parents about their marriage? Awkward. You might say something about Tybalt, right? He has still this challenge to Romeo for a fight. He's certainly not thinking too kindly towards Romeo. And again, there are high stakes. You might have written about how the prince has warned on pain of death, no conflict will break out in this city. So there are a lot of things you might have written about. So now we're moving into Act 3. So I skimmed through Act 2 with Romeo and Juliet arranging their marriage and then them getting married with Friar Lawrence and the nurse's help. But now we're in Act 3 and we're going to see Mercutio and Benvolio enter in. So this is right after the scene with Romeo and Juliet getting married. Now, do Mercutio and Benvolio, do they know that Romeo and Juliet have been married? No. Do they know that Romeo and Juliet are even like in a dating, like love situation? No. Who does know though? There are only two people who know in addition to Romeo and Juliet. The Friar Lawrence and the nurse. So really Romeo, Juliet, Friar Lawrence and the nurse are the only people who know about this. So let's see what happens. Remember, Tybalt has challenged Romeo to a fight.
I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot. The capels are abroad, and if we meet, we shall not scape a brawl.
Yeah, right. On hot days, everyone's on edge. I bet you feel that. When it's hot, you're sweaty, you're more liable to maybe get in a fight.
For now, these hot days, is the mad blood stirring.
The mad blood.
Thou art like one of those fellows that when he comes into the confines of a tavern, he claps me his sword upon the table and says, God send me no need of thee. And by the operation of the next cup of wine, he draws it on the drawer when indeed there is no need.
Am I like such a fellow?
Come.
So Mercutio is saying, hey, you're like the person who says, oh, let's not fight, let's put our sword down. But then after drinking some wine, suddenly fights. So Mercutio thinks that Benvolio, in cautioning him against fighting, is being a little hypocritical.
Thou art as hot a jack in thy mood as any in Italy, and as soon moved to be moody, and as soon moody to be moved.
And what two?
Nay, and there were two such, we should have none shortly, for one would kill the other. Didst thou not fall out with a man for cracking nuts, having no other reason than thou hast hazel eyes?
So he's saying, hey, Benvolio, didn't you fight someone simply because they're breaking up nuts and the nuts are like the same color of your eyes? Like there's very trivial reason you fought someone?
What eye but such an eye would spy out such a quarrel? Thou hast quarrelled with a man for coughing in the street.
See, another trivial reason. A man coughed in the street and you got in an argument with them.
Because he hath awakened thy dog that hath lain asleep in the sun. And yet thou wilt tutor me from quarrelling.
Dun, 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 dun. Who is that? Tybalt alert, Tybalt alert, Capulet alert.
By my head, here comes the Capulets.
By my heel I care not.
Follow me close, for I will speak to them. Gentlemen, good e'en. A word with one of you.
And but one word with one of us. Couple it with something. Make it a word and a blow.
You shall find me apt enough to that, sir, if you will give me occasion.
Could you not take some occasion without giving?
Mercutio, thou consortst with Romeo.
Consorts. That's like hang out with. Don't you spend time with Romeo? Because remember, Mercutio, he's not a Montague. He is a relative of the prince.
Consort. Zoons. Consort. The slave will make fiddlers of us. What?
Fiddlers. So he's playing on the word consort, which was often confused with concert, like a musical gathering. So when Tybalt's being like, hey, don't you hang out with Romeo? Consort. we got Mercutio playing with words, right? We see often in the play these puns on words.
Make us minstrels, and if thou makes minstrels of us, look to hear nothing but discords. Here's my fiddlestick. Here's that shall make you dance.
The fiddlestick is the sword. So he's continuing that, the image of the concert.
Walk here in the public haunt of men. Either withdraw unto some private place, or reason coldly of your grievances, or else depart.
So Benvolio's being a peacemaker. He's like, come on, folks, everyone's watching right now. We're literally in the city streets.
Here all eyes gaze on us.
Men's eyes were made to look, and let them gaze. I will not budge for no man's pleasure, I.
Well, peace be with you, sir. Here comes my man.
I'll be hanged, sir, if he wear your livery. Marry, go before into the...
Okay, Romeo's come in. So Tybalt's like, here's my man, the one I'm really angry with. I want to fight.
field, and he may be your follower, so in that sense your worship may call him your man.
Romeo! The hate I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain.
Wow, thou art a villain. That's one of the most famous lines. The hate I bear thee can afford no better word than this. Thou art a villain. Make sure to memorize that. So if there's anyone who crosses you at school, you can just turn to them and say that angrily in their face.
The reason that I have to love thee doth much excuse the appertaining rage to such a greeting.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Romeo loves Tybalt? Why might that be? Who is Tybalt's cousin? Yeah, Juliet. So Romeo's like, hey, Tybalt, you don't know that Juliet and I are married. I mean, he's not referencing that, but he's saying, hey, I love you, and you don't know why I love you, but I do.
Villain, am I none? Therefore farewell. I see thou knowst me not.
Boy! This shall not excuse the injuries that thou hast done me. Therefore, turn and draw.
I do protest I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst devise.
Again, he's like, I haven't hurt you. I haven't done anything wrong. I've loved you, right? We are family now. He's not saying that, but he's mentioning this love because they are family.
Till thou shalt know the reason of my love.
See, it's not revealed yet. When you know the reason for my love, you will understand.
And so, good Capulet, which name I tender as dearly as mine own.
Yeah, Capulet, as name I tender as dearly as my own. And look at Tybalt's face. He's like, what on earth? I have no idea why you're saying this, because Tybalt doesn't know that Romeo and Juliet are married now.
Be satisfied.
Oh, calm, dishonorable.
And Mercutio's pissed because he doesn't know about Romeo and Juliet. So he's like, why on earth, Romeo, are you just rolling over like that?
Vile submission! Alisticato carries it away. Tybalt, you rat catcher, will you walk?
What wouldst thou have with me?
Nothing, good king of cats, but one of your 9 lives, that I mean to make bold withal, and as you shall use me hereafter, dry beat the rest of the 8. Come! Will you pluck your rapier out of the scabbard? Make haste, lest mine be about your ears ere you be aware.
I am for you.
Gentle Mercutio, put thy rapier up.
Come, sir. Oh. Your passado.
Draw, Benvolio, beat down thy weapon! Gentlemen, for shame! For brother's own way! Tybalt! Mercutio! The Prince Express has forbid this standing for in the streets! Hold Tybalt! Good Mercutio!
Oh, Romeo trying to break up the fight, blocks Mercutio's blade, and Tybalt slides his own into Mercutio's ribs. Dun 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 dun.
Hurt! Tybalt! Awake! Plague of both your houses, I've sped!
A plague on both your houses. Remember, Mercutio is not of Montague or Capulet, so he is cursing that conflict.
Is he gone? Hath he nothing?
What, art thou hurt?
Aye, a scratch, a scratch. Marry, 'tis enough. Where is my page? Go, villain, fetch a surgeon.
Courage, man, that cannot be much!
No! 'Tis not so deep as a well, nor so wide as a church door. But 'tis enough. 'Twill serve. Ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. I am peppered, I warrant, for this world. Plague of both your houses! Zoons! A dog, a rat, a mouse, a cat, to scratch a man to death. Braggart, a rogue, a villain that fights by the book of arithmetic. He hath made worms meat of meat.
He has made worms meat, right? When you're buried, you are eaten by the worms.
Yeah! Why the devil came you between us? I was hurt under your arm.
I thought all for the best!
Pox of your houses. Help me into some house, Benvolio, or I shall faint. I shall be fairly mounted upon 4 men's shoulders. And then some base slave, some sexton, some peasantly rogue shall write my epitaph. That Tybalt came and broke the prince's laws, and Mercutio was slain for the first and second cause. I have it, and soundly. Come, Benvolio, lend me thy hand. Pox of your houses!
This gentleman, the prince's near ally, my very friend, hath got his mortal hurt.
Dun. Yes, his mortal hurt, his deathly hurt. Now, before we watch what Romeo chooses to do next, I want you to reflect, because this is probably going through Romeo's mind right now. Who is at fault for Mercutio's fatal wound? I want you to write for 2 minutes, and I'll give you a couple other questions, but for 2 minutes, do you think it's Tybalt who is at fault? Mercutio? Romeo? Are there others in the play? And I want you to think who is primarily at fault, okay? And really choose someone and explain why you think that person is responsible for this blood. You can title it A Plague on Both Your Houses. Go. You have 20 seconds. Finish that final sentence. And remember, you can always pause this video if you need more time. Now I want you to, and it can be in that same paragraph, now to answer the question, should the friar and nurse have helped Romeo and Juliet? Should they have kept it a secret? So you might have already started to write on this, but think, the only people who are aware of this situation are Romeo and Juliet and the friar and the nurse. And Romeo might kind of, in a vague way, tell Tybalt that they should have love for one another, but should they really have kept this a secret? Should Romeo have told Tybalt right then before the fight broke out, hey, I married Juliet, we're part of the same family? Whoa, that's a hard one. I want you to reflect on this for another 2 minutes. Finish up that last sentence. You can always pause this video if you need more time. And finally, I want you to consider for another 2 minutes, I know maybe your writing hand is a little sore, what should Romeo do now? So not should, what does he do? So some of you already know this story, but what should he do? He just saw his close friend stabbed mortally with a sword by Tybalt. He kept, maybe you disagree that Romeo should have, instead of keeping this a secret, he should have just told everyone that he was married to Juliet. But what should he do now? At this point, he's made the decisions that he's made. 30 seconds left. Okay, wrap up the final sentence or pause the video. Okay, let's see how he responds. See if it maybe matches what you think he should do.
In my behalf, my reputation stained with Tybalt slander, Tybalt that an hour hath been my kinsman. Oh, sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate, and in my temper softened valor's steel.
So thy beauty, so his love for Juliet has made him effeminate, meaning like has made him less masculine, less manly. So his love ended up making him in the previous scene try to bring peace, try to stop the fight, and actually led to Mercutio's stabbing. So that's why he's saying, oh, I should have fought in that moment.
Romeo! Brave Mercutio is dead. That gallant spirit hath aspired the clouds, which too untimely here did scorn the earth.
This day's black fate on more days that depend. This but begins what other days must end.
Here comes the furious Tybalt back again.
Alive in triumph, and Mercutio slain. Away to heaven respective lenity, and fire and fury be my conduct now.
Fire and fury be my conduct now. So he's decided to go the path of fire and fury. Earlier peace, but what did peace give him, right? Peace just led to Mercutio's death. Now fire and fury against Tybalt, who is now actually part of his own family because of his marriage to Juliet.
Now, Tybalt, take that villain back again which late thou gavest me. For Mercutio's soul is but a little way above our heads, and stays for thine to keep him company. Either thou or I, or both must go with him.
Thou wretched boy that did consort him here, shalt with him hence.
This shall determine that.
Stand not amazed, the prince will do thee death if thou art taken. Hence, be gone away. Why dost thou stay?
I am fortune's fool. You have that famous line. So now that you've seen Romeo's choice to kill Tybalt, to break the rules, right, to go against the prince's decree, and remember, the prince's decree had the threat of death attached to it. And now Romeo cries out, I am fortune's fool. But you might be thinking, wait a second, I see a lot of choices in here. So do you see Romeo a victim of fortune, of fate, of destiny, of being unlucky? Or is he a victim of these free will, of the choices that have been made in this play? I want you to reflect on that for 2 minutes. This is the final bit of writing. If you're struggling to know what to write, you may compare and contrast Romeo with Oedipus. Oedipus's fate was inevitable. He could not avoid it. Everything he did to avoid it led him on the same path. Is this the case for Romeo? All right. So now you've reflected on, is this destiny? Is this fate? Or is it just a series of poor choices? Thinking about how Romeo compares to Oedipus, are these star-crossed lovers? Are these fortune's fools? A very important question as we move forward. And to conclude, a quick clip from that modern day version of Romeo and Juliet, the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt. You see Tybalt there in the black, Mercutio with the white shirt.
Outrage, Mercutio!
Art thou hurt?
Aye, a scratch. A scratch! Scratch. A scratch!
Courage, man. The hurt cannot be much.
'Twill serve. Ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. Plague of both your houses. They have made worms meat of me. A plague on both your houses! The devil came in between us. I was hurt under your arm. I thought all for the best. Plague for both your houses. No! No!
Okay, and now it's time to write your commonplace book entry. Remember, we looked at a lot of different scenes today, so if you want to find quotes from the friar helping out Romeo, that's Act 2, Scene 3. If you want to look at Mercutio talking about Tybalt and Tybalt's challenge, that is Act 2, Scene 4. If you want to see the nurse sharing the news with Juliet about this upcoming wedding, that's Act 2, Scene 5. If you want to see the marriage meeting right before they get married between Juliet and Romeo, that's Act 2, Scene 6. And if you want to explore that longer sequence we looked at today, the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt and Romeo and Tybalt, that is Act 3, Scene 1. Good luck. I'm excited. A lot of intense stuff today.